My name is Tracy Miles. I'm 33, and I've learned that some speeches don't ask for answers, they ask for compliance. Jeremy sat on our couch like he was about to deliver a TED talk about personal growth. He even folded his hands, thumbs touching, the way he did when he wanted to look composed. I just feel lost, he said gently. I need a break to figure out what I really want. He'd practiced this in the car. I could hear the rehearsal in his cadence, the way certain words were underlined with breath. Lost, break, figure out, want. They hovered like polished stones he'd chosen carefully from the riverbed of cliché. I didn't argue. Arguing with a prepared performance only makes you a prop. For months, our floorboards had creaked with a kind of invisible rot. You don't see the damage. You feel it when you cross the room. The late-night texts turned face down on the table. The new friends I never met. The nostalgic tone when he mentioned his ex, Alexis, as if memory had a fresh coat of paint. He kept talking, soft and magnanimous, constructing a moral escape hatch that would let him leave without admitting he'd already packed. It's not a breakup, he concluded. Just a pause. We can see other people if we want, but we aren't over. There it was, the thesis. A hall pass notarized with pretend maturity. I asked one question. What does a break look like, Jeremy? He seemed relieved I'd asked the line he'd expected. Time, he said. Space. To think. To be fair to each other. Space, I repeated, nodded. Okay. That word landed between us with a weight he didn't notice at first. He smiled, buoyant with the victory of an easy surrender, the kind that keeps the door ajar and the lights on. Great, he said. I knew you'd be mature about this. Where will you be staying? I asked, during your journey of self-discovery? The smile stuttered. What do you mean? Here, obviously. I stood. It felt like standing on a deck that finally stopped listing. No. A break means we're not together, which means we don't live together. My name is on the lease, Jeremy. Consider this your checkout. I'll change the locks tomorrow. The first honest emotion of the night crossed his face. Raw, startled disbelief, like a mask slipping before the next one could be fitted. He had imagined a pause button. He accidentally pressed eject. I pulled flattened moving boxes from the hall closet and set them on the rug between us. The cardboard made a hushed, definitive sound like a judge sliding a file across a desk. He cycled through the stages, scoffing that I was overreacting, indignation about tenancy rights, then bargaining, fast and sloppy. I don't need a break. Forget I said it. I didn't perform with him. I labeled a box bathroom and opened the vanity. He slept on the couch after trying and failing to turn the bedroom into a theater for forgiveness. I left early. You have until 5, I said at the door. Locksmith's coming. By 10 a.m., my phone jittered like a trapped moth. He'd blocked me on everything. Then the show started without me. His Instagram, once a highlight reel of our weekends, pivoted into a sepia-toned sermon series. A teary selfie. A caption. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. Choosing myself, even when it hurts. The chorus assembled. So brave, King. Proud of you. Healing looks good on you. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and declined to become a publicist for my own life. Midday, a message arrived from a number I hadn't saved, but knew by tone alone. Cade, Jeremy's best friend, the quiet one at group dinners, who asked real questions and remembered the answers. We'd bonded once over bad 80s thrillers, and how sincerity is the bravest special effect. You okay? He wrote. He's telling people you snapped and kicked him out for no reason. I stared at the screen until the words stopped blurring. Snapped. The genius of abusers is how they narrate your boundaries as violence. I'm fine, I typed. Where is he staying? There was a pause long enough to count. With Alexis. I felt nothing dramatic. No stomach drop, no flare of red. Just the quiet slide of a puzzle piece into place. Of course. Thank you, I sent. I'm sorry, he wrote back. He's been lost for a while. That was his word, not mine. I smiled despite myself. That evening, I packed the rest of Jeremy's belongings. The shirt he claimed was lucky, the Polaroid camera he never learned to use, the leather DOP kit he only took on trips he posted about. I rented a storage unit in his name, mailed him the key and the bill, closed the supplementary credit card, forwarded his stray packages to the unit address. Logistics as grief therapy. Order as oxygen. By morning, I'd changed my number. Silence, I've learned, is a strategy. It is not passive. It is a refusal to audition. 2 days later, I sat in a conference room at work as the COO slid a folder across to me. Paris, she said. 3 months. The job is bleeding. Lead walked. We need a closer. That you? Blueprints, budgets, timelines, real problems, honest work, the kind you fix with math and sweat instead of performance. Yes, I said before fear could clear its throat. That night, I stood in the doorway of the bedroom that was finally just a room again and felt the air settle. The apartment did not miss him. Neither did the mirror. I scrolled my new number's empty message threads until I reached Cade's brief apology, which I'd screenshotted before changing SIMs. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't even tender. It was something rarer in my recent life, useful and clean. I stared at the ceiling and said it out loud, just to test the sound. 2 bedrooms. The company was putting me up near Canal Saint-Martin. Big place, spare and bright, chosen for exhausted executives who forget to look up. One room would be mine. The other would sit there with its tidy white sheets and undisturbed pillows, like a staged photo of possibility. Cade, I knew from a single story he once told between beers, had never been to Paris. He'd studied art history until life rerouted him. He could name painters by the way they failed at hands. I was careful with the thought, the way you carry hot water across a room. I set it down. I picked it back up. I set it down again. The next morning, I messaged him from my work email. Professional, neutral, heading to Paris for a rescue mission. Company apartment has an extra bedroom. If you ever wanted to stare at brushstrokes in person, I can offer a free bed and tragic coffee for a few weeks. No pressure, no agenda, just a standing invitation. I hit send, then closed the laptop like it was a door I didn't need to look back at. Hours passed. A site meeting came and went. The COO asked if I liked my new hard hat. I said it made me feel like a lighthouse. She laughed, not knowing I meant it. By dusk, a reply. Short, nervous around the edges. I bought a ticket. I exhaled, surprised to find the breath had been held for months. Not because of romance, because of witness. The one person who hadn't demanded a role in the play was choosing a seat in this entirely different film, the kind where the city is the main character and the plot is just 2 people walking long enough to tell the truth. Across town, Jeremy posted a boomerang of whiskey in a cut-glass tumbler, the caption, a parable about healing and wolves. The comments were a bonfire. We never liked her anyway. Onward, King. You're glowing. I closed the app, powered down the phone, and listened for the sound that had replaced the throb of panic in my chest, the soft, steady click of locks changing. Tomorrow, a locksmith would come for the door. Next week, a flight would lift for Paris. In a month, a bridge would appear under our feet and the camera might catch us laughing if we forgot to look guarded. But tonight, there was only the apartment, the quiet, and the clean relief of not being someone's contingency plan. The last thing I did before bed was write a single line on a yellow sticky note and press it to the fridge. A break is not an alibi. I slept. The morning the locksmith arrived, the apartment sighed like it had been holding its breath with me. He replaced the deadbolt with a clean brass cylinder, a new key that didn't remember anyone else's hand. When he left, I tested the door twice. It didn't stick. Some things close more easily once you stop asking them to stay open. I treated the rest like a project, a week of exit procedures. I transferred the utilities back to my name only, called the gym to remove him from the couple's plan, emailed the landlord a formal notice that no one else had permission to enter. I changed the Wi-Fi network's name from Our Place to Quiet Apartment, and set a new password that only I could guess. There's a delicious science to reclaiming your life. Variables, constants, proofs of control. Online, his chorus kept singing. The selfies became sermons, the captions, parables. Healing isn't linear. Some people love your potential, not you. He never used my name, only the silhouette of a villain drawn with soft pencils. Every now and then, Alexis appeared in the margins, a tagged coffee cup, a blurred sleeve in a bar booth. She had always been a rumor in our kitchen. Now she was a prop in his theater. Or maybe I had been hers. We were all background to his spotlight. Silence makes people itchy. Friends pinged to check in. Their concern dipped in curiosity. Their curiosity lacquered in gossip. I sent polite emojis, a thumbs up, a doing fine, thanks. The truth was simpler. I had decided to stop being a press release. In the evenings, I packed the last of his stray objects I hadn't recognized at first. How many things we carry that we don't choose. A box of old wristbands from concerts he'd only gone to for photos, a stack of self-help books with unbroken spines, a tin of beard balm he'd never opened but displayed like a medal. I labeled each box with his name, marked the storage unit's address, scheduled a courier. I included a typed inventory at the top of the first box, date-stamped and signed. If he wanted to fight, he'd have to fight paper. Cade texted sparingly, as if he understood that too many words would contaminate the quiet. The night before I flew out, he called instead. His voice had that careful hush grief gives to decent men. I should have said something sooner, he started. To whom? I asked. And about what? Your friend was on a break. That's the lie he asked everyone to play along with. Cade exhaled. It wasn't a break, he said. It was an alibi. He and Alexis started circling months ago. The lost speech was practice. She's persuasive. He's weak. That's the combination. I sat on the suitcase lid until the zipper reached itself. How long? On paper? Since the week before your anniversary. Off paper? Longer. A pause. I didn't have proof. Only rhythms. People think lying is chaos. It's actually patterns. I smiled despite myself. You notice patterns? It's my curse, he said. And sometimes my job. Remember when I said he was lost? I meant he was already staging his exit and wanted applause for the choreography. Silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. He filled it gently. Tracy, Paris is not a rebound. Go fix something real. You're coming, I said, more insistence than question. He hesitated. I don't want to complicate anything. Then don't, I said. Come look at paint the way it dries differently in centuries-old air. Go home with 100 new mistakes to make on purpose. I have a spare bed and tragic coffee. Cade laughed, soft and surprised. All right, I'll meet you there. When we hung up, I stood in the doorway of my bedroom, mine, and thought about how some places remember the last voice that spoke inside them. This room had heard me beg too often, bargain too often, explain too often. I was done insisting that my boundaries were kindness. They are structural. They keep the roof up. At the airport, I didn't post anything. I texted the COO that I was wheels up, sent the project team my first week plan, and downloaded the museum maps I'd only pretend not to need. On the plane, I slept the hard sleep grief gives you when it finally trusts you to carry yourself. Paris in late afternoon light is the world forgiving you without telling you why. The apartment near Canal Saint-Martin was bigger than my life at home. High windows, pale floors, a kitchen that understood how to hold steam. 2 bedrooms, one with a narrow balcony, one with a perfect square of sun. I took the one with the balcony because I wanted to step outside to think. I made the other one for a guest, not a penance. I worked. God, I worked. The failing project was a tangle of change orders and bruised egos, the kind of mess that looks personal but is really math. I met the site leads at dawn, learned their names, and the nicknames they trusted to friends, asked which errors they were tired of repeating. Every night I sent the COO a brutally honest debrief. What we fixed, what we broke by fixing, what we'd try next. I slept hard and woke with numbers in my teeth. I loved it. Cade arrived 3 days later with one backpack and a face that looked like it had forgotten how to unclench. He hugged me at the door and did not linger, like a man careful with glass. He hadn't shaved. He smelled like airports and rain. You found it, I said. I followed the water, he answered, glancing down the canal. Cities leave breadcrumb trails if you listen. I pointed him to his room. Fresh sheets. A small vase with ridiculous daisies because seriousness needs mocking. A note on the pillow. You owe the apartment 3 jokes a day. When he laughed, it sounded like the first unbroken thing either of us had heard in months. We made rules, out loud, like adults. No autopsies after 10, I said. The late night makes every memory rot. No social media in common spaces, he added. The living room is not a courtroom. No over-explaining kindness, I said. The bed is a bed, not a hint. No hinting, he repeated. If either of us gets weird, we say it. We stuck to them like a truce. During the day, I lived on site plans and hard hats. Cade spent hours at museums, coming home sun-tired and quiet-bright, telling me which brush strokes felt like apologies and which like confessions. Evenings we walked nowhere in particular and let the city talk for us. The clack of shutters, the bicycle bells, the tiny arguments couples have when they both care. He told me things, real ones, not to injure Jeremy, though truth injures where it needs to, but to relieve me of visions that weren't mine to hold, the flirtations disguised as nostalgia. The way Alexis learned to tell stories about the woman who came before her and after her, always as if she were a worthy sequel to people no one had asked to see again. The group's complicity, all of us audience members, pretending the play was spontaneous. "Why did you stay friends with him?" I asked once, not accusing, just curious how smart men bargain with loyalty. "Because I remembered who he was when he wasn't performing," Cade said. "I kept waiting for that guy to come back. He didn't. I think some people don't get worse so much as they get more themselves." "Maybe we do too," I said. He looked at me then, not romantically, cleanly. "You got more yourself when you didn't clap." Back home, the smear campaign gathered flourishes. A mutual acquaintance forwarded a screenshot. Jeremy called me calculating and cold. I laughed out loud on the balcony, the sound spinning into the narrow street. People confuse calm for cruelty when they can't control it. I documented everything, not for court, but for the part of me that believes in records. Every message from a mutual friend went into a folder. Every expense got a category. Every memory, when it woke me at 4 a.m., got written down and labeled, then filed away. I was building an archive of the life I wouldn't repeat. One evening, Cade returned with a small paper bag and a grin that made him look suddenly, devastatingly young. "Emergency eclairs," he announced. Also, I stood in front of a painting for 20 minutes and apologized to it for every time I pretended I liked its cousin. We ate on the floor because chairs make some truths feel too official. He showed me photos he wasn't sure he'd keep. Street musicians, a woman in red boots crying without hiding, a crooked window full of clocks. In my phone's black screen between shots, I saw our faces side by side, not as a promise, not yet, but as proof that I had not miscounted myself. 2 people, 2 whole lives. No halves, no placeholders. Before bed, I opened Instagram for the first time in weeks. My grid was a fossil. 5 photos from a summer we hadn't earned, a Polaroid of a plant now dying in my kitchen, a shot of my shoes because once I thought that was a personality. I hovered over the icon to unblock Jeremy, then put the phone down. Not yet. Not out of mercy. Out of pacing. Even revenge deserves choreography. I slept early and hard. Sometime in the night, a wind slipped through the balcony door and tugged at the edge of the curtain like a child asking to be let in. I dreamed of bridges, how some are made to carry the weight of a crowd and some, the quiet of 2 people who don't need to talk to travel. In the morning, I found a note on the kitchen counter in Cade's blocky script. "Some doors close loudly. Others you just walk past, and when you look back, they're already not there." Underneath, a sketch of a lock. It looked nothing like mine and exactly like it. We had work to do, both kinds, fixing and letting be. That afternoon, I was scheduled to present my rescue plan to the French subcontractors, a dozen men who distrusted pivots. I buttoned my jacket. Cade held up an imaginary clapperboard. "Action," he said. I smiled. "No," I corrected. "Structure." Outside, the canal flashed a thin seam of light. In the glass, for a second, I saw us reflected like a scene from a movie that wasn't about romance at all, but something harder and kinder. 2 people refusing to be reduced to someone else's plot twist. And somewhere, I knew, a different scene was playing. A man trying to narrate the consequences of his own choices as something done to him. A woman learning that the person she aligned herself with valued applause more than presence. Patterns, rhythms, the math of human behavior. I didn't hurry. Bridges appear when you walk far enough toward them. There's something dangerous about Paris in late autumn. It softens even the hardest edges, like a city that keeps forgiving you before you've earned it. 3 weeks into the project, I found myself walking home later than usual. The rain had started as a drizzle and then decided to commit fully, washing the dust from the limestone walls. I stopped halfway across the Pont Neuf, the bridge's lamps flickering in the mist. It felt like standing in the middle of a clean slate. Cade called from behind me. "You have that face again," he said. "What face?" "The one that thinks silence is a spreadsheet you can balance." I laughed. Old habits. He walked beside me, hands in pockets, the kind of stillness that doesn't ask to be filled. That's what I liked about Cade. He didn't demand confession. He created space for it. The Paris office started calling me La Femme Tranquille, the calm woman. I didn't correct them. Calm isn't peace, it's containment. Workdays blurred into a rhythm of repairs and rewrites. I was rebuilding schedules that had collapsed under poor planning, chasing invoices across languages, untangling a mess someone else had called strategy. Every night, I'd return to the apartment, peel off my blazer, and find Cade sketching by the window, music low. He'd show me rough lines of things he'd seen that day. A boy tossing crumbs to pigeons, a street violinist whose bow was frayed, a couple arguing in whispers under an awning. He didn't draw me until the 6th week. He left the sketch pad open on the counter one morning. It was me, leaning against the balcony rail, coffee cup in hand, head tilted toward the city. I almost didn't recognize myself. The lines were softer than I remembered being. "Why this one?" I asked when he returned. "Because you looked like you were about to forgive yourself," he said simply. I didn't know I needed to hear that. One Saturday, we went to the Musée d'Orsay. The rain had driven most tourists away, so the echo of our footsteps filled the halls. We stood before a Monet, one of his later water lilies, where the brushstrokes start to collapse into abstraction. Cade murmured, "You ever notice how his paintings stopped trying to be about the pond and started being about the act of seeing itself?" I turned to him. So the subject changed from what he saw to how he saw. He smiled. "Exactly. That's what healing is, I think. Not the scene, just how you look at it." Something inside me shifted, not the dramatic kind, just a quiet click of comprehension. That night, back at the apartment, I scrolled through the quiet remnants of my old life. Mutual friends still posted carefully neutral things, pretending not to pick sides. But I noticed patterns, likes from Alexis under every cryptic post Jeremy wrote, a photo of her hand in a familiar leather jacket sleeve. It was almost poetic, how little effort they spent hiding. But I wasn't angry anymore, I was curious. The following week, I got the email confirming our Paris project had stabilized. Deadlines met, budgets balanced. The COO's message ended with, "You're a lifesaver, Tracy. Come home when you're ready, but not before you've seen the world for a bit." It felt like permission to breathe. Kate and I celebrated with dinner at a small bistro near Montmartre. Candlelight, jazz humming low, the kind of warmth you only notice after months of cold. We ordered too much wine. He toasted to projects that survive sabotage. I raised my glass to people who stop mistaking chaos for passion. He laughed. "That sounds like a personal essay." "Everything is lately," I said. "I just haven't decided if it's finished." When we left, we walked without a map. The night folded around us like velvet. On the Pont des Arts, I paused again. Same bridge where I'd once stood alone in the rain. This time, Cade's hand brushed mine. Not a grab, a question. I didn't pull away. The city held its breath. A tourist across the bridge snapped a photo. 2 silhouettes framed by gold light, hands barely touching. We didn't even notice. Later, back in the apartment, I found the image reposted by the photographer's account, captioned in French, "Two strangers who forgot to hide." I stared at it for a long time. The photo didn't look like revenge. It looked like release. That's when I knew. I opened my dormant Instagram. My fingers hovered over the upload icon. For months, I'd said nothing, posted nothing, let the lies breathe unchecked. But silence isn't surrender, it's timing. I uploaded the photo, me and Cade, crossing the bridge, hands linked, both laughing like the world wasn't watching. The late sun caught the water just right. Caption: "Sometimes you have to cross an ocean to see what was right in front of you all along." Then, calmly, deliberately, I unblocked Jeremy. I didn't wait long. 4 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "What?" Then again, "Who is that? Are you insane? Is that Cade? My friend? You were supposed to wait for me." Each message landed like a slap against a glass wall, loud but unable to reach me. I didn't reply. 2 hours later came the voice message, his voice tight with disbelief. "You betrayed me, Tracy. We were just on a break. You." I stopped it halfway through. The man who had choreographed my silence was now screaming into it. Cade saw my face when he came out of the shower, towel around his neck. He saw the post? Less saw, more combusted. He smirked. Guess he didn't like the new narrative. "I didn't write a new one," I said quietly. "I just stopped being a character in his." I thought that was the end of it, but narcissists don't lose quietly. They perform their collapses too. Jeremy wasn't done. I thought the worst was behind me. Turns out rage has a sequel. Jeremy didn't text again that night, but by morning, my inbox had become a landfill of his chaos. Long, rambling emails that started with apologies and ended in threats. One line would read, "I'm happy for you," and the next, "You'll regret this." It was the emotional equivalent of switching TV channels mid-sentence. Cade glanced over my shoulder at breakfast as I scrolled. "Classic projection," he muttered, stealing a croissant. "He's not angry you moved on. He's angry the audience left before the curtain call." I smiled thinly. "You've been reading too much psychology." He shrugged. "I lived it too." By noon, Jeremy had escalated to professional sabotage. A notification pinged from HR. An external complaint has been filed regarding misconduct on your company assignment in Paris. I didn't panic. I'd expected this move the moment I saw his name reappear in my inbox. His pattern was predictable. When emotional control failed, he reached for institutional power. The complaint was a novel disguised as a grievance letter. He accused me of using a corporate trip to seduce a vulnerable man, of leveraging company resources for personal escapades. He even attached screenshots of my Instagram photo, his supposed evidence. It would have been almost funny if it weren't so deliberate. My boss, Elise, called that afternoon. Her tone was firm, not fearful. "Tracy, I just forwarded his email to legal. Don't worry, we've got it." "I know," I said, keeping my voice even. "I briefed you before the trip for this reason." "I remember," she said. "And your work results speak for themselves. You pulled off the impossible here. Don't let this man rewrite that." When the call ended, I finally exhaled. Cade had been watching me from the balcony. "He tried to nuke you professionally?" "Of course," I said. "He couldn't kill the story, so he tried to kill the storyteller." He stepped inside, setting his sketchpad aside. "You need a distraction." "From attempted defamation?" "From letting him take more oxygen." That night we walked through Le Marais under a drizzle that turned every streetlight into melted gold. We ended up in a record shop, the kind that still smelled of dust and wax. Cade flipped through vinyl sleeves while I leaned against a crate. The music playing was Nina Simone, her voice, dark honey and smoke. "Do you miss it?" Cade asked. "What?" "The version of love that feels like a performance. The highs, the drama, the dopamine of almost being destroyed." I thought about it, tracing the edge of a record cover. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but only the illusion of intensity, not the emptiness that follows." He nodded slowly. "That's honest." Outside, Paris felt softer. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket, more messages from Jeremy, but I didn't reach for it. For the first time, ignoring him didn't feel like resistance. It felt like peace. 3 days later, HR closed the case. Jeremy had overplayed his hand. The legal department sent him a cease and desist letter, formal, terrifying in its precision. Elise called again, amused. "Apparently, he didn't realize we speak French here," she said. "Half his letter didn't even make sense to our legal team." I laughed, properly this time. "Thank you for believing me." "Thank you for fixing Paris," she replied. "Come home whenever you're ready, or don't. We'll find you another crisis if you get bored." Back at the apartment, Cade was sketching again. I leaned over his shoulder and saw the drawing. 2 figures on a bridge, blurred at the edges, indistinct. "It's us, isn't it?" I asked. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe it's just 2 people who stopped pretending they owed anyone an audience." That night, we ordered dinner in, cheap noodles, red wine, and mismatched mugs. The kind of meal that feels like an inside joke. He raised his glass. "To the art of walking away before you're pushed." I clinked mine against his, "to staying gone." The city outside hummed, unbothered. Somewhere out there, Jeremy was probably rewriting the ending again, turning himself into the victim in a story that no longer included me. But this time, I didn't need to correct him. I had my own script now, and for once, it didn't need an antagonist. 2 weeks later, my project officially wrapped. Elise flew in for the closing meeting. "You saved us," she said, hugging me. "The client wants to name a conference room after you." I laughed. "Please don't. No one should have to have lunch meetings in a Tracy." That evening, I walked to the Pont des Arts alone. The air was cold and clean. The locks glimmered under the fading sun, thousands of tiny promises rusting in place. I watched them for a while, realizing how many people confuse permanence with love. When I turned to leave, I saw Cade waiting at the far end, a small box in his hand. My heart stumbled, not with fear, but with the recognition of timing. He didn't kneel. He didn't make a speech. He simply opened the box to reveal a silver key, simple, unadorned. "It's to the new place I found," he said. "Back home. 2 bedrooms, no ghosts. You don't have to say yes, just have it." The bridge wind caught the corner of my coat, I smiled, tears prickling unexpectedly. You really know how to ruin a good symbolic moment. Better than trying to own it, he said. I took the key. That night, we packed our things. The apartment, once a recovery room, now felt too small for what came next. I took one last photo of the balcony, the city lights behind it. Caption: Closure isn't revenge, it's altitude. Then I logged out, for good. Back in the States, the world moved on faster than I expected. Word spread quietly that Jeremy's lies had caught up to him. His company had flagged his email to HR as harassment, Alexis had broken things off, and he'd retreated into silence. I didn't celebrate. I just noted it, the way an accountant notes a settled debt. Cade and I moved into the new house. 2 bedrooms, sunlight that didn't ask for permission. One morning, I found the silver key he'd given me on my nightstand. He'd scribbled something on a note beside it. This time, no locks to change. And for the first time in years, that didn't scare me. It felt like freedom. A year later, I still catch myself reaching for the doorknob twice, once for fear, once for habit. Then I remember, I'm home. Not the apartment, not the Paris flat, not even the house Cade and I bought near the edge of town. Home, as in safe, inside myself. The morning light here is different, gentler, slower to judge. We painted the walls a color called morning fog, which sounds sad but feels like peace. Cade says it looks like the kind of sky that forgives you before coffee. He's in the next room now, arguing with the kettle as if it were a creative collaborator. I hear the whistle, the mock groan, the laugh that follows. That sound has become my favorite alarm clock. Sometimes when I think of Jeremy, it's not anger that arrives, it's analysis. He was a study in dependency, disguised as confidence, a man who needed mirrors more than people. His greatest fear wasn't losing love, it was losing his audience. And Alexis? A few months ago, she sent me an email, a strange short thing, typed from an address I didn't recognize. I thought he changed for me. Turns out he just changed targets. You were right to go silent. I wish I had. I hope you're happy. No apology, no drama. Just an exhausted truth. I didn't reply. Some doors close quietly, not because they're locked, but because the wind knows when to stop pushing. Still, I saved the email. Proof that even performers eventually tire of their scripts. Cade proposed in the most uncinematic way possible. Sunday morning, mid-laundry, flower on his sleeve. He held up a simple ring and said, "No speeches, no metaphors, just, will you stay?" I said yes before he finished. We don't call it a wedding. We call it a small agreement with witnesses. 30 people, backyard, spring. Air heavy with jasmine. His parents cried, mine danced. Alexis didn't come. She sent a note wishing us well. I chose to believe it was sincere. The ceremony was short, the vows even shorter. No performances, no rescues. Just truth, even when it's ugly. We both signed those words like contracts, then laughed because they sounded exactly like us. 2 people who fell in love through paperwork and art supplies. Sometimes I still dream about Paris. Not the romance of it, the structure. The city taught me that beauty can live beside brokenness, that even old stone carries new light if you face it from the right angle. Once in a while, a mutual friend sends an update. Jeremy still lives with his parents, working retail, posting vague quotes about second chances. His followers are fewer now, his captions quieter. I wish I could say I felt pity. I don't. Just distance. Like watching a play I once auditioned for and realizing how wrong the role ever was for me. Cade's sketches from Paris hang in our hallway. One in particular stops visitors every time. A blurred drawing of 2 figures crossing a bridge, hands almost touching. No faces, no context. Beneath it, he wrote in tiny print, recognition. That's what it was. Not lightning, not a rebound, just recognition. 2 people who had seen the same kind of storm and still wanted to build something in the sunlight. Tonight, as I finish this story, he's sitting across from me, sketching again. The window's open, and the wind carries the scent of rain. It feels familiar, but not haunting anymore. He looks up. You writing? Finishing, I say. Good ending? Not dramatic enough for television, I smile, but perfect for real life. He grins. That's progress. I think about the last note I ever wrote to myself, the one on my old fridge in the quiet apartment. A break is not an alibi. Now, I'd add a second line. Enclosure is not a door. It's a mirror you finally stop looking for. I close the laptop. Cade leans over, kisses the top of my head. The world outside is quiet, but it's not the hollow quiet of loss. It's the kind that means peace has taken its rightful place. For years, I believed endings should be loud, cinematic. But the truth? The most powerful endings sound like this: a kettle cooling on the stove, a pencil scratching across paper, two people breathing in sync. No revenge, no applause, just the clean stillness of being seen and staying seen.